Recording in progress.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, yesterday we learned about all how to create controlled components. Controlled components, and we discussed about how conditional rendering works. So, conditional rendering is a component can change its behavior presentation according to the state and situation. We don't need to design multiple components. We can create one component which can have multiple behaviors. So that is possible by using conditional. Now, next important after understanding that, now today we are going to learn about React hooks. We are going to deal with these React hooks. So, what are React hooks and how these work actually? This here you should not confuse about 2 points actually. In React, we have a concept called life cycle hooks. Life cycle hooks are different and React hooks are different. Both are different. So I will give you a detailed differences between them. React hooks were not there earlier. React hooks are newly added into React from the 17 version onwards. So before 17 version, React completely depends on class components. I already told you we are going to use function components. Earlier we were using class. I will show you class components also after this functions example. So the point is the modern React doesn't recommend using of much classes and they introduced some new concept called hooks, which will give more functionality to functions. That means even today in some interviews for experienced people, they ask what are the problems in function components. Currently, we are using which components? Function components. But earlier people who worked on old versions of React, they have complaint on function components. They have complaints on various function components. That means they say that function component can't do this, function cannot have this. Such complaints were there. React community has resolved all those issues by introducing the concept of hooks. And now in the modern React, they recommend not to use classes, better to use only functions. Earlier, whatever complaints were there about functions, they are resolved now. That's the reason we don't have any issues with functions. But still, we will learn difference. Classes and functions, we will understand. So, what is actually this hook and how technically it works? Generally, what is the point is, so hook is a service actually. Hook is a service. Hook is a service. That is the first basic point. Now, what is meant by a service in programming languages? What is a service? I explained hierarchy. Na? What is a service in computer programming? Actually, uh, in general, for example, we have some functions and some values. Usually we have functions and values. I explained this scenario. These functions and values are together kept in what? Factory. They are kept in the factories. That means, so we have oh, yeah. So we have functions and we have factories. So we have the values and functions. Yeah. Some problem. Okay, so here some issue is that hanging. Okay, so here I already explained this scenario. The concept is nothing but we generally have values and functions. These values or functions are added into a factory and factories are added into a service. So technically, if anyone asks like what is a service, what is the concept of a service? So technically, service is a predefined business logic. Service is a predefined business logic. So it is a predefined business logic. So which allows to implement and customize according to the requirements. So it is a predefined business logic which allows to implement and customize according to the requirements. That means already some logic is written. So you can just implement it and you can use it. So generally, for example, a real-time concept I will explain. Suppose you are designing a registration or a login form. In a registration login form, we have a threat of robots using it. Online, we have a problem that robots can use our forms. To prevent robots, we use capture. Ask you like, do you know how to write capture program? Because as a web developer, without that, there is no design at all. These days, a simple form also should have a capture. Any technology you may be, Java, .NET, any technology you are building a web application, a capture is required, minimum requirement that is. A change password form, a login form, registration form, they prevent robots using a capture. If anyone asks like, do you know how to write code for capture? That's a wrong question because capture is not such code you write. Capture is a artificial intelligence program which verifies whether you are a human or a robot based on your mouse movement, keystrokes. And that is not a program that you write. Somebody already written that artificial intelligence program and they will give it to you. You have to just inject in your project and use it. So what is capture? Capture is a service. Capture is a service which you can implement in your project. You don't write logic for capture, you implement it. Already they are written. It is a predefined business logic. So that is a service. That means an application is built with a lot of services. Services means functionalities are predefined. You just use them. You customize them. For example, you designed a website. In that website, user must able to log in with his Gmail account. He will not register in your website. You designed a website and you asked to register and use it, but he is not willing to register in your website. Then you have an alternative. Okay, don't register. Use your Google account to log in. Can you tell me what is this known as? Enabling a third party login in our website is known as, it is also a service. Do you know its name? That means Google's login we put in our website. What is that service known as? So we call that service as Open ID authentication. Open ID authentication service. Google, Facebook, all these people will provide you. You go to their website, you have to register for Open ID. They will give you a key. Using that key, you have to put that login in the website. That means simply Google login you can't keep in your website. You need their permission. And whenever anybody logs in into your website with Google, Google will verify and provide access. That means for that you need a service called Open ID. Web development is about lot of services. Lot of services. For example, how you remember anybody's login and give him login without asking him for user ID password again. For that, we use a service called cookie. For that, we use a service called cookie. These are all services built in, predefined business logics. We have to implement and use them. For example, do you know, suppose I want capture. Do you know we have Google reCAPTCHA. Google reCAPTCHA. So this is Google's reCAPTCHA. And you can see what Google reCAPTCHA. So reCAPTCHA is a free service. It is a free service. So it uses advanced risk analysis techniques to tell humans and bots apart. That is the meaning of CAPTCHA. Na? Completely automated public tuning test to tell computers and humans apart. That is the full form of CAPTCHA. And it is a service. It is a service. As I told you, like we have another side. What is it? Open ID. Open ID services will be there. Open ID authentications. These open ID authentications are very common. So technically, a application is built with a lot of services that reduces the effort of writing logic. You don't write already written, just implement. So service is a predefined business logic. And technically, actually, service comprises of various components. Service contains different components. It contains various components. What are the important components of a service? Means when you are using a service, you should know about the components. One is provider, another one consumer, and we have injector. Provider, consumer, injector. Technically, service provides these three major components: the provider, the consumer, and the injector. So actually, what is the job of provider? That means what happens is, suppose you are having a service. This service you want to use in your app. In your app, you have to use the service. Now, what happens is, in the memory, this service is loaded. Now, what app to do? That means in the memory, service is loaded. What app have to do? App have to use that service which is present in the memory. That means now what app needs is, app needs a provider. App needs a provider. What provider will do? Provider will go into the memory and it will look for the service. Is it available or not? That means a provider is responsible for locating the service in memory. That means services are loaded in memory. Who will verify them? Who will check whether the service is available or not? Who will do that? That is the job of whom? Provider. That means a provider is going to locate the service in memory. If the service that you are looking for is found, if provider finds, then what it will do, with the help of, after finding, with the help of injector, we have an injector. With the help of injector, it injects the service into your app. First, it is loaded in the memory. And who will locate it in the memory? Provider. Provider's job is locating the service and its values in the memory. After finding the service related content in memory, inject that service into your components, your app. That is the job of injector. And the component that is using that service is called as what? Consumer. Consumer is somebody who is using that service in your app. That means your app is consuming a service and it is using the service. So actually, two are basically used everywhere. Consumer is a general term. Provider locates the service and injector will inject the service. There are two basic main concepts. Provider provides and injector will inject. This mechanism of locating a service in memory, finding the service in the memory, injecting it into your component, this entire mechanism is called as DI, dependency injection. This entire mechanism is called dependency injection. In every object-based, object-oriented programming, you will have a concept called dependency injection. Many times, learners are a little bit confused because of outside YouTube people have different ideas actually. So while learners are confused because, do you know generally what people do is they will put a heading dependency injection. Under dependency injection, they will put one program and they will say that this is a program related to dependency injection. That is nonsense because dependency injection is a mechanism which internally works even between object and class in a OOP language. That means how objects get hold of all the members of a class, how they access the members of a class and use them. That is also a dependency injection. It is not a separate program of dependency injection. Many people bluff and misguide you saying that this is a program of dependency injection. Many people come and even ask like, will you teach dependency injection? By the questions itself, we can understand that he don't know anything about technology, right? That means just YouTube knowledge, just general websites knowledge. And technically they are not correct. So that means a service internally uses dependency injection. So you are using a hook. That means you are already using a mechanism called dependency injection. If you can create a hook like that by yourself, that means you are now creating a dependency injection. If you can create a hook like that, that means you know dependency injection. That means you know dependency injection if you can create your own hooks. So technically, what is the job of these three things? So provider is responsible for locating values and the services in memory. Provider is responsible for locating values and services in memory. Injector is responsible for injecting the values and functions into application. So consumer implements the service. Consumer implements the service. Provider is responsible for locating, injector is responsible for injecting, and consumer is responsible for implementing. So service uses dependency injection. Service uses dependency injection mechanism. Service uses dependency injection mechanism. So what is the advantages of this dependency injection. If anybody asks, like, what is the use of a service? What is the use of dependency injection? So, what is the use? Dependency, dependency injection. Dependency injection enables features like reusability, extensibility, testability, and maintainability. Maintainability. These are all the key features of dependency injection. We can reuse, we can easily extend, we can easily test, and we can easily maintain. So separation, reusability, extensibility, these are the primary features. And you know that every OOP language have these. That means every object-oriented programming languages, object-based programming languages, they come with this. Why you are talking about object-based? Because JavaScript is not a OOP language. JavaScript is not object-oriented. It is object-based. It supports some features of OOPs, but it is not an OOP language. So it is not an OOP language, and any object-based mechanism supports these features. So we have object-oriented, we have object-based, and these are general features of dependency injection. So this hooks, that means hook is a service, and first you need to know about service. And the key point is React hooks, React hooks, React hooks are functions. React hooks are functions that return predefined functionality. That return predefined functionality, which a component can implement and customize according to the requirements. So React hooks are functions that return predefined functionality, which a component can implement and customize according to the requirements. So what is technically hook is a function. So hook is a function. So how to create a hook? You have to create a hook by using function. And React introduced hooks. So from version 17x, officially they were integrated into the React community from the version 17. Currently we are using React 18. So React introduced hooks from the version 17x. So we have some rules about these hooks. That means what is technically hook? Hook is a function. So, but what is the concept about function? It is a predefined function with some predefined logic, which you can implement and use anywhere you want. For example, what useState is doing? useState is creating one local state. In that local state, it is allowing us to store some data. And it is allowing us to access the data and assign new values into that. Generally, how we allocate a state? By using sessions, by using cookies, by using local storage. In JavaScript, in a browser, how you generally create a state? We have query strings, we have cookies, we have local storage, we have session storage. So without using them, it is creating a state for you, maintaining values in that for you. That means it is internally doing something. So it is a service. Actually, without that service also we can do. But without that service, what we have to do? We have to manually create a state, manually store the data in state, manually access data from state. So without use state, how you will do? Currently, we are using use state. Without use state, how you will do? What you can do is you can create a session or say, yeah, you can create a session. How to create a session? So you can create a session by using window have a session storage. Window have a session storage. And we can give a set item. And what is the key? Key is something. So key is suppose user ID. And what is the value? Some value. Or later you can assign the value. Later, how you can assign the value? It is nothing but what is it? Window dot what? Session storage dot what? So we have a get item. We can get the item or we can set a new value. Get the item. What is that item? You need user ID. You need to define the key. That means how we can create a session, how we can store data into session, how we can access the session. This is a lengthy process. So what use state is doing, it is internally doing such activity. We have to just implement this. We create a getter and we create a setter. Actually, internally state have a setter and a getter. We are not directly using it. We are using a service. So it is built in with that facility. So that means you can create your own services. You can create your own hooks. So the point here is hooks concept was not there earlier in React. So they were introduced into React from 17 version. And we have some rules about it. What are the rules about hooks in React? So here, technically, the first point I will tell you, React provides predefined hooks from Meta community. From Meta community, it provides predefined hooks and also allows to create custom hooks. It also allows us to create custom hooks. We can use some predefined hooks provided by them, or we can create our own hooks. We will see both, how to use predefined and how to create our own hooks. So what are the rules? What are the rules? So what are the hook rules? So what are the hook rules? Technically, there are some important rules to follow. First important, so hook means it must be a function. So hook means it must be a function. It is a JavaScript function. It must be a function. Second point, it cannot be void type. That means a hook function cannot be void type. So what does it means? A hook function must return. A hook function must return. It must return. It must return. It can return anything, but it must return. It cannot be void. So a hook function, technically it is a function. It cannot be void type. Void type. It must return. Another important is, so must it must be configured. It must be configured at higher level. It must be configured at higher level in a component. At higher level in a component. Higher level in a component. What does it means is you cannot configure a hook, in any another function or block. You cannot configure a hook in any another function or block. At higher level in a component only you can define. In any another function or block, you cannot configure a hook. That means, for example, we have a function called handle, or say use effect. Just function as handle change something. Now in this function, we are using a constant, some uname and a set uname, and is equal to what? Use state. Use state is a string type. Like this we define. And important is this is invalid. That is invalid. You cannot define any hook inside a function. You cannot define a hook inside a function. So, or inside any block like if condition, for loops, anywhere. It must be at higher level only. Higher level. Higher level means in the global scope of a component. In the global scope of a component, not in any function of the component. It must be at higher level. So you cannot define any hook inside a function or inside any another block. It must be at higher level only. At higher level only you have to use it, right? So another important is, so it must uh, it must be defined in camel case. In camel case, it must be defined in camel case. It must be defined in camel case. You know camel case representation. Camel case representation, you see already use state is using that camel case, lowercase and an uppercase and again lowercase. That is a very common rule. Already I told you, na, components also must start with an uppercase letter. That is mandatory, right? So hooks must have this basic rule, right? So technically, when you are designing a hook, these are the basic rules you should know. So it must be a function. It cannot be void type. It must return, and it must be configured at higher level. You cannot use inside anywhere, and it must be defined in camel case. And hooks are not allowed in class components. Hooks are not allowed in class components. We cannot use hooks in class components. That is a general common thing actually. That means it is a common concept. Generally, later you will learn how to create a component using class. After we learn function components, we will learn class component. Class component is an outdated thing. We don't use in modern React anymore, but still we will learn to work with older versions. And this is a general common sense. Why? Because you already learned in JavaScript, in a JavaScript class. So in a JavaScript class, can we have a function? Can a JavaScript have a function as class member? No. You learned already in JavaScript, class member cannot be a function or a variable. Class members means what are allowed as class members in JavaScript? JavaScript class member can be a property or a method or an accessor or a constructor. Only four are allowed as class members. Functions are not allowed as class members in a class. Then how you can use hooks in a class? Hook is a function. Hook is a function. You cannot use them. So hooks are not for any project or anybody who are using class components. If any React project is using class components, these hooks are not for them. And if you ask then how they maintain state, how they maintain use effect, for them different process is there, which I will show you. In the next level, we will learn class components. There we don't have use state. There we don't have use effect. There we have a different approach. Different approach. So hooks are not allowed. Hooks are not allowed in class components. So these are the basic rules you need to follow. So let's see how to create a hook. How we can create a hook, how we can implement it, how we can use it. First, we will see how to create a custom hook ourselves. We can create our own. Once we know how to create a hook, then we will see how to use ready-made hooks, predefined hooks available. Let's see how to create a hook. For example, how do we create a hook? Hook, as I told you, like a service. Huh? For example, in our components, we have a login component. Huh? Okay, let's keep this in the startup. We have a login component. Fine. So already we have this login component. So in this login component, let me open that login dot, yeah, JSX. In this login component here, I am adding a data term and say verify code, and I have a data definition. That means I have one option, verify code. I want a random code here. I want one random code. A 6-character random code should be generated. A random number should be generated. You can generate a random character with your knowledge of arrays, looping, and all. You can create it. Right? A simple process we will see. That means just like captcha, but it is not captcha. We are creating our own. So wherever I need a login form or a registration form or change password form, OTP verification form, everywhere I need a random code to verify. Then everywhere writing a logic for generating random code is difficult. So what we will do, we will create our own hook. Let's create a hook for this. How to create a hook? I will go to SRC folder. In this SRC folder, let's keep a new folder called hooks. We will create a new folder hooks. Now in this folder, we will add a new file. So the file name is suppose use captcha .jsx. Use captcha.jsx. Remember, sometimes people use only JS and you can use JSX. Why they use JS? Because they are not using any JSX elements inside. They are just using some logic. Logic means they write some function, it will return some value. They don't use any JSX element. Then they have an habit of using what? JS. It's okay, anything is fine. But if your hooks can use JSX also. That means your hooks can use JSX. Hook can use another hook inside. In that case, it must be what? JSX. So you can give JS or JSX. Anything is okay. Now we have capture JSX. Okay, right. So how to create this? That means how do we create this? How do we configure this? So what we have to do, of course, you need export because you have to use it outside. And what is it? Function. And what is the name? Camel case. Use capture. Use capture is a function. As per the rules of hook, it must be in camel case. We satisfied that. And currently it is void type. It is invalid. That means currently this is an void type. It is invalid. It is invalid. So a hook function cannot be void type. Cannot be void type. Then what it should be? So it cannot be void type. What it should be? It should return. So what we will do is we will create a code, and we code is actually a string. Code is actually a string with collection of dynamic values. And what it should do is it should return the code. Code is a string and it should return the code. So now the capture is good. It is not void, it is returning a string. And what is that string? String is nothing but we will use here. So the code. So into the code, so we will keep an expression here. What is that expression here is, we'll write an expression. How to get a random number? You know, we have a math dot round. It will round using math dot random. Math dot random is a JavaScript function which will return a random number, and you know that random numbers will start with 0 point. So fractions, they will start with fraction. That is the reason what we will do is, so math dot random will return a random number. We will multiply by 10. So then it will return a positive integer. Then we will round that so that we don't need any decimal places. We will round to the nearest and we will implement that. This is one random number. Usually what happens, about the random things, right? What is that is in the console. Yeah. Later we will use it. Yeah. So math. So this math dot random will generate a random number like this. And that is the reason we know that random number will generate a very fractional value. So we will multiply by 10, then it will get a number like this. Then what we will do is, so we will round this. So math dot what? Round, and math dot random. So into what? 10. So this we are doing. This will give us a correct number. That means every time it is going to give a different number. Every time it returns a different number. So we know this. Generally in JavaScript, we know this. That's the logic I am implementing here. And like this is one number. This is another 3, 4, 5, 6. A 6-digit number we are generating with space. It's a string. And we are returning that number. That's it. Now the point is your hook is ready. That means you created a hook and it can define like this. Now, sometimes hook can be parameterized. It can be parameterless. You can have parameterized hooks, parameterless hooks. If it is a parameterized hook, it is mandatory to pass the parameters. Function parameters are mandatory. It is mandatory to pass. So it can be parameterless, so it can directly be used. So another point is, so hook can be parameterless or parameterized. Parameterized. If hook is parameterized, then it is mandatory to define the parameters. To define the parameters, it is mandatory to define the parameters. define the parameters. So you need to configure that. It's a simple one. Lot of complex functionalities also we can use, but this is a general simple concept. That means it's a very simple hook I created which will generate a random one. Now where to use it? So I want to use this hook in our login. And if I want to use the hook in our login, then we need to import. So we have to import what? Use captcha. You have to import use captcha. Like this, in several projects, you will see different hooks. Now, will you ask anybody that do you know use captcha hook in React? How anybody knows what you invented, right? So what you designed, what you created, how anybody knows about it? That's the reason in several React projects, one regular doubt will come when you are watching online and all. The hooks that they use in React are not actually built by React. They are all custom made. React implicitly have only very few hooks they provide. All others are built by third parties, and it is not mandatory that everybody have to know them. Right? How do I know what hooks you are using? That means just like you saw, use formic, use form. These are not the hooks related to React internally. These are from third parties. And we don't know their names. We are not sure about them. That means if you say that I don't know what is use formic, that's not a mistake. That's not a problem. Why? Because if you haven't worked with formic library, you worked with some other library, there, those hooks, you know. How you know these? So there are so many such concepts that you will come across in your projects of React, where your company creates their own hooks and use them in their projects. You need to know about them in your documentations, like what is the hook, how it is built, how it is used, right? So now how to use it? Simple. We will put a constant in the constant code is equal to what? Use capture. I am accessing that use capture. That means this, what is this use capture is doing? It is returning a code. That code is stored here and we need to display that code here. That means we need to just put the code here. We need to put the code here. That means the login will generate a random code. And whenever you refresh, it will get with a new code. Whenever you refresh, it will get with a new code. It's your wish. You can write logics, whatever you want. That means if you don't want 10 number, actually 10 number is coming there, then you can write a condition. If the random number is 10, then minus 1. Then we don't want 10. That depends your requirement. That means every time it is generating some random code. Now this is not capture. This is just a concept of understanding how to use a hook. Now many people have a doubt like, why you are calling this as a hook? This is a general function. That means ordinary function also we can do like this. You can write a JavaScript file, put a function inside, import that function and use it directly. What is difference between directly using a function and using a hook? So what is difference? That means now React recognizes this as a hook. When React recognizes this as a hook, because you are following all the rules of hook, what is the advantage of that? I already told you, na, if you remembered, actually service. So if anyone asks you a question like, why to create a hook? Why to create a hook if you can do the same with a general function of JavaScript? Why to create a hook if you can do the same with a general function of JavaScript? So what is the point? I told you one concept, if you remembered. What is that concept is actually hook uses singleton pattern. Hook uses a singleton pattern. Hook uses a singleton pattern, and function uses a single call pattern. Single call pattern. We have a singleton pattern and a single call pattern. So what is singleton? What is single call pattern? So dependency injection always uses a mechanism of singleton. So dependency injection uses a singleton pattern. Function uses a single call pattern. So what is the point actually? What is singleton? What is single call mechanism is generally it's nothing but simple point I will show here is, so usually we have a hook and we have a general function. So we have a hook and a function. These are presented, these are provided by the memory. That means these are in the service. These are not in the service, these are in the memory. Now what happens is our application have to use it. That means we have to use them. Then in order to use a function, that means in order to use a function or a hook, we need an object. That means we need one object. Now what happens is by using this object, we connect with the hook and we access the hook. Actually, this happens internally. Whenever you access a hook, an object is created for it. Through that object, it is accessing that hook, right? Now, when you want the hook again, that means across multiple requests, you want again, then
Recording in
we
progress.
want to access the function again, then another object is required. You want the access the function again, another object is required. That means every time a new object is required to access the same function. Every time a new object is required to access the same function. That is single call mechanism. So this is single call mechanism. Single call mechanism. That means an object is called only once and after that it will be destroyed. Every time an object is called, for every call, a single object is created. But you create only one object which can work across multiple requests. We don't need again and again object to create. Then it is called as what? Singleton. This mechanism is called singleton mechanism. This is singleton. Singleton is a software design pattern. And in this design pattern, an object is created only once per an class, and the same object is used across any number of requests. So a class can have only one object. That is a singleton pattern. So if you are requesting anything across multiple requests, so then best one is to go with a hook, not with a traditional function. That is the reason if anyone asks like it is an ordinary function concept only, why you are saying it is hook, right? Because if you configure it like a hook, then it uses a singleton pattern, which is very important for your application. So generally, what is the advantage of the hooks? They are representing a dependency injection. They are using dependency injection and they are using a singleton mechanism. So that is important. While working with the hooks, we should know that. So this is a just example I will give. What is singleton? Here a point I will tell. Another question, what is single call? Single call. So it is an approach where an object is created every time. An object is created every time whenever a resource is requested. It is an approach where an object is created every time whenever a resource is created, whenever a resource is requested. So what is singleton? So it is an approach where an object is created for first request and the same is used across multiple requests, across multiple requests, across multiple requests. So that is the option. Now, while creating such hooks, this is simple one. So I just created this simple one. Suppose even for handling interactions like animations, some formats also, people create hooks. By using the hooks, they handle certain interactions. For example, if anyone asks like we have a moment, we used moment date related one library. What is the purpose of that library is you pass a date value and it will return a format, right? How to create such by ourselves? That means we need, that means you already saw the problem that date cannot be displayed in a format you want. Now you design a hook in such a way that it can format the date in your own style and display. For that, why you are using a third party? Can't you create by yourself? We can create by ourselves, but it is very lengthy process. Lot of logic we need to write. That means how to take a date value and present in a good format. Present in a good format. That means it requires lot of logic to write. Lot of logic to write. These kind of things they already implemented, they provided you as third parties, you just import them and use them. That's the reason you used moment for displaying the dates in a proper format. So I will just show you an overview, means how such hooks are created. See, okay, now tell me how to create a hook which can take a date value and present the date value in a good format. So then here we will go to the hooks and we will create a new. This is use date format dot what JSX. Use date format dot JSX. Okay. Export and a function. What is it? So use date format. It's a hook. Now what it should do is it should collect a date from you. That means it must collect a date from you. That means it is expecting a date parameter. That means it is expecting date. It is expecting date. And you in a date constructor by using the date constructor. So some date, suppose you say this is new date is equal to, so we will get new date constructor. Into the date constructor, we will pass the date. That means whatever the date we collected from the user, we will do it. And what I will do is I will just return the new date. I will just return the new date. As of now, just I am returning the new date. Means we are collecting a date and returning the date. This is the basic one. But how to format it now? You know, date and time functions you learned. You learned date and time functions. By using those date and time functions, we can display. Because you know that in JavaScript, date and time functions, they all return only number. Get hours, get day, get month. I given already list in the data binding already. I given you date functions, what they do. That means generally, suppose if I want to use this hook, let's go here. What I am doing somewhere here, inside this, I will keep, I'll just keep a complete container. Yeah. Now inside this, I want to display some date, right? So what we do, so we are importing a hook. Import. What is the hook? This is what use date format. And what we do here is we will create a LET, and suppose now is equal to, or say MFD something is equal to use date format. And into that, we need to pass the date value. That means I am passing the date value 2024. So year, month, suppose it is some 4 and 16, and we given some hours, minutes, seconds, something like this, or just I am giving this initial. Now what we need to do is this we need to print here. That means whatever the manufactured is there, this we need to print here. What is it? MFT. That means now what it is going to do here, it is showing some error. What is the error? It is saying that object date. That means it is showing that this object date is not allowed. Where it is not allowed, it is not allowed here. Now what we need to do, we need to take all the precautions for collecting the date in a plain string format. That means we don't use this. Suppose directly, whatever date you given, we collected the date. We are not converting anything and we are displaying here. Then you see the date will come. It is just a string written. What we have to do now, we have to convert into date format, apply different date formats here. Actually, here you can also take one more parameter. You can ask for which format they want. And they will enter the format. We write a condition. What is that? If format is equal to what? YY and DD and MM. if the format is written. Actually, we write switch cases because so many formats they can enter. If it is this, then what we will do, we will return in one style. If another, then we will return in another style. This is complex thing that you write, right? I'm not creating that. I'm just giving you an idea about how they design. So it's not necessary for us to create that. Later, I will show you we can create our own formats. But these kind of things they already implemented and they are just providing to you. We have to just use them. So we will later learn how to create this. We will later learn how to create these kind of complex things. But initially, I already showed you a custom one. What is that custom one is capture. How we can create a hook. Similarly, lot of logic you write and use. And one more point is when you create a custom hook, you can use all other hooks that you have learned till now. We can implement all the logic that we have learned till now. For example, how to access data from any API. To access data from any API, we have to use axios.get. We have to get the response. But we will do one thing. We will create a hook in such a way, it will just ask you the URL and finally gets the data and gives to you. That means you don't need to write any Axios. You don't need to import any Axios. You just use a hook. It will do everything for you. So let's do that. Means how we can create such things, right? Then what we will do is I will take a simple one here. In the hooks, I will add a hook called get API data .jsx. Okay. And export function. And this is use get API. That is the hook name. And what this have to do? That means what this have to do? So it should get the data from an API. How you will do that? You can use fetch method. You can use fetch method. You can use Axios also internally. So for example, see what I'm doing here. So we will define a constant and data and what set data. We are using set data and here we will use state. That means we can use a state inside the hook. And what is the data? Suppose I'm expecting an array. I'm expecting an array. Okay. Now, how do we fetch the data and store the data in this place? Then what we have to do? We will use effect. That means inside the hook, we are using so many hooks now. And what is that use effect hook have to do? This use effect hook have to get the data and return the data. So how we can get the data? So we can use what? Fetch. By using fetch, so we can access this URL. It is expecting URL and we can fetch that URL. And dot what? Then we'll get a response and return the response as what? JSON. And dot then it will get the data. That means it will get the collection. It will get the collection and this collection should be assigned to what? Set data and whatever the collection comes, it should store there. And very important now is this data must be returned. You remember it is an void type. You cannot have an void type. Then what we have to do? We have to return what? Data. This hook will return the data. And one more important point is whenever I pass a different URL, then this load should work again. Generally, you already learned use effect will run how many times? Only once. But whenever a new URL is passed, it should load again. Then the dependency here is URL. That means whenever there is a change in the URL, use effect will load again. Generally, use effect is a component mount, will mount only once. When you want to mount it again, when URL changes, mount again. URL every time. Every time when URL changes, it should load. Otherwise, it will load only once. Every change, it should update. That means now you are giving use effect with a dependency. And the dependency is whenever the URL changes, then load this again and get the data. So now what we will do, we can use anywhere. Just I am using this login screen, or which one we will put a home screen. So home we will use. Okay. And you can see default the home is coming. In the home, we want to display some data. So let's go to the home screen. Yeah. Here we want to get the data. So then what we have to do, we need to import. What we need to import? You need to import use. So import what? User. Yeah. So import. So use API, get API. Use get API is the option. Okay, now what we need to do, we define a LET. Just we are collecting the products. And how do we get the products? So use get API, and here I will pass the URL https:// what it is, fakestore.api.com/ what products. I'm using simply this. I'm not using any fetch. I'm not using any Axios, anything inside this component. We are just using a hook. And now let's see the products are coming here or not. So I will just keep a div. So I will keep an ordered list. I will keep here. So products dot what map. We will read every product. And for every product, we will create a list item. And here we will display the product dot what title. We are displaying the product title. And we will put a key here. So key is what? Product dot ID. We are displaying that product ID. And you can see it is working. No fetch, no Axios, nothing. Already we built it. We already built it ready-made. That means now you simply use this hook. That means you created a custom hook in such a way that it can handle all the interactions internally. You just use it. That is how you will see hundreds of custom made hooks in projects. Because they need certain interactions regularly, they create a hook for that and they simply use that hook. So this is the approach of how we can create custom hooks. Now, what is advantage here? In any component, you want some data. You don't need to use Axios. You don't need to use fetch manually. So you don't need to write all that logic. Just use the hook, pass the data, it will get that. That means you may be wondering like how Axios is working. Axios, they design like that. How Axios is working. It is a third party. They designed like this. Internally, they are using XML HTTP request of JavaScript and fetching the data, getting the data and using. These all are custom made hooks, right? This is another example. I will give you the example of these hooks, right? So how to implement them? So one example is what? CAPTCHA. So this is the hook we created. And what is it? Use CAPTCHA hook. This is use CAPTCHA dot what? JSX. This is the use CAPTCHA hook. It is in which folder? Hooks folder, right? We have another hook. So use API. So get API data dot what? JSX. I created this one. Get API data. This is the another hook we created. And how do we implement that? Login dot what? JSX. In login.jsx, I implemented that. Yeah, here in login.jsx, I'm implementing that CAPTCHA. Just roughly, I will copy everything. And in home.jsx, I implemented that API. I implemented that API. That means I will copy this also for you, right? So this is a simple example of how to create our own hooks and use them. Now we will see custom hooks. That means built-in hooks. Inbuilt hooks, what are they? That means what are the hooks provided by React? That we'll see tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we will have session. In tomorrow's session, we will discuss about how to handle the built-in hooks of React. Tomorrow we'll continue. Okay.